For Red News, Blue News this week, I have a very special guest standing by in Berkeley, California. But first, let me show you what we're talking about. It's Brian Williams' interview with Edward Snowden. It aired in prime time on Wednesday night on NBC, and it's now available online. Snowden, as I'm sure you well know, provided all those top-secret NSA documents to reporters like Glenn Greenwald and got the whole country talking and debating mass surveillance.
Ed Snowden, traitor or patriot? He says breaking the law was his only option, and that's not all he said.
That's what he said. We'll debate it fair and balanced.
So that tease right there, that tease is too often how the story is framed. Watch this tape with me from Fox News the morning after the interview. This is the segment they were teasing. First, there was a Republican voice, radio host Lars Larson.
He should be put on trial. He should be convicted because he's a guilty traitor. He deserves to be shot.
Okay. There's a lot of talk about whether or not Brian Williams asked him the toughest questions that he could of Jessica.
All right, let's stop right there. Martha MacCallum, your guest just said a whistleblower should be shot and killed, and you didn't ask any follow-up question. Instead, you started questioning Brian Williams' questions. All right, now let's go back to the tape because now Martha is turning from her Republican to her Democrat, Jessica Ehrlich.
There's a lot of talk about whether or not Brian Williams asked him the toughest questions that he could of Jessica. Congressman Peter King raised that question, saying that he wasn't tough enough on him. What do you think?
Well, I didn't get to watch the whole interview. I mean, I know.
Stop. If you did not watch the whole Snowden interview, you should not be opining about Snowden on television. But she did anyway, and she went on to say that it disturbed her that Snowden was given a chance to tell his side of the story. Now, that is an extreme example. But all across the cable dial this week, I heard a lot of skepticism about Snowden. I'm sure you did too. A congressional aide here, a former government official there. I did not hear enough from his supporters. So let's hear from one right now. I'm sure you know his name, Daniel Ellsberg. He was the Pentagon Papers whistleblower 40 years ago. And he says Snowden did the right thing. Daniel, thank you for joining me. It's remarkable to me that he waited a whole year to give a U.S. TV interview. I talked to his legal advisor who said that was on purpose because he wanted the interview to be about mass surveillance, not about the man himself. Do you think he accomplished his goal?
Yes, I do. I think that he needed to be out of the country in order to do what he has done, which is to guide the several reporters that he's dealt with, Bart Gellman, Laura Poitras, and Glenn Greenwald, very carefully by chat logs, through the maze of arcane symbols and allusions in the NSA documents. If he'd simply dumped them on the web, which he could have done without any attribution, he'd be free and clear and he'd be back in Hawaii right now if he'd done that. They don't speak for themselves. There's too many symbols and code words that even I, having had those clearances and been in the government, wouldn't understand without someone informing me. So he's been able to do that continuously, and the only way he could do that was from outside the country.
And yet a lot of the reaction, a lot of the media coverage was about the fact that he is in Russia and that he wants to come home. We saw Secretary of State John Kerry comment about this, and he was comparing, actually contrasting your case and Snowden's. Let me play a clip from that.
There are many a patriot. You can go back to the Pentagon Papers with Dan Ellsberg and others who stood and went to the court system of America and made their case. Edward Snowden is a coward, he is a traitor, and he has betrayed his country. And if he wants to come home tomorrow to face the music, he can do so.
Reacting to that, you wrote an op-ed for The Guardian calling it slanderous and despicable. Tell me why Secretary of State Kerry is wrong.
He's wrong in a number of ways. First of all, he calls Edward Snowden a fugitive from justice. I would say that he's right in regarding himself as a fugitive from injustice. That appeared in my own trial 43 years ago, and that was the very first prosecution of any American for giving information to Americans. That my trial demonstrated that I was not allowed, by the nature of the charges against me under the Espionage Act, to describe my motives, my reasons, the considerations that had led me to break my promise that I'd made to the government many times not to reveal their secrets. I wasn't able to tell the jury that I regarded those secrets as wrongful, unconstitutional, wrongfully withheld. I wasn't able to say anything about that, or why I felt that it was reasonable for me to risk my life in this circumstance, as I had done earlier in the Marine Corps and elsewhere in Vietnam. but to risk my life to get these truths to the American people. Snowden wouldn't have any chance to say any of those things, the sort of things that he said to Brian Williams. He couldn't say those to a jury. The prosecutor would say, objection, irrelevant, as in my case. And under the current terms of the Espionage Act, the judge would have to agree. That's why the Espionage Act needs to be rescinded as applied to leakers. It was never meant to be applied to whistleblowers, as President Obama has now done 7 times. It's not designed for that, and it's unconstitutional in that capacity. And second, Congress should pass laws that guarantee a public defense to anyone accused of breaking secrecy regulations by truth-telling, by whistleblowing.
Edward Snowden has called you an inspiration. Do you view him as an inspiration as well?
I certainly do. I think he's, I was very pleased to hear that I'd been in his mind at all. When I saw that on the news just yesterday, I called my wife over to look at the computer. She said, you should take a picture of that. I'm proud of that because Edward Snowden is a man who makes me proud to be American, and that doesn't happen every day.
Daniel Ellsberg, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on This Morning.
Thank you very much.